There's certain soul clusters in the world that are actually more entangled and are more interwoven than others. So, and it very much depends on your nationality. And lucky us, as Persian Jews, we are the most entangled soul clusters that exist on the face of this earth. So, for example, as Persian Jews, the intergenerational passing down of woundings and unresolved issues is majorly more expressed in our lineage than if you were, for example, an American Jew, and even more so from Americans whose soul clusters are not as entangled. I hope that's clear. I know it's a complicated concept, but so first consideration is your nationality, because there's no such a thing as separateness. We are all interrelated. And so, depending on your lineage, you very well may be carrying a lot of things that don't belong to you. Secondly, it is your own personal evolution as a human. And every human being in the world comes into the world as a recorder. We are a recording device. That is more than anything what you can describe the brain, especially between the ages of 0 and 7, as a recording device. So you could put your infant, to sleep in the next room over and feel that your child is completely safe from absorbing the horror movie that you're watching, on your TV. But if there is any way or possibility of the sound from what you're watching getting to that baby, even if the baby's sleeping, what their brain is doing is recording not only what's happening on TV, the horror movie that's happening on TV, but they're recording your reactions to it, and the energetic environment of the home is being recorded. So you take that small slice of time, that small example of the fact that, everything between 0 and 7 is being recorded in a human being's mind, and then you apply that towards the feelings that are not being expressed, but that your grandmother has, or your grandfather has, or that, regardless of what kind of face your parents put on, they're being passed down to you. And it becomes quite clear the miraculous nature of the human brain and what it holds on to and responds to consistently. And you may not know where it comes from. That's one of the reasons why it's said that in every generation, those who do their own healing work, that's the only way you can break any kind of chain. Because if you're doing your own healing work, then you're showing up around the people that you love without carrying that energetic presence, so that you are not unconsciously passing it down. One of my favorite and most descriptive examples of something that I've experienced relays this pretty clearly. I saw a young Catholic German woman who was about 26 years old in my private practice for about 3 or 4 years. And she came from a very well-to-do, high echelon German Christian family, Catholic family, and they had emigrated to the United States, and she was the firstborn. She was raised beautifully with very loving, doting parents. And for about 3 years, she was severely struggling with abandonment issues, to the point where every time she'd get into a relationship with a boyfriend, she would have heart palpitations like if he'd get up to go to work. And she was otherwise a highly intelligent, very secure, beautiful, young woman who had nothing really to have these kinds of deep-rooted abandonment issues. And she had had it her whole life. Her separation anxiety and being taken to kindergarten was incomparable to others, you know, just major issues. So after about 3 years of work together, we decided to do a past life regression, which is not something that is I take lightly, and it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. You have to prepare for it. There's a 3 to 4 week process of prepping for it, and it's like you're moving into pretty intensive, deep-rooted realms of not just the mind but the soul. But sometimes, you know, that's where your traumas lie. If you're not aware of it, you can't identify it in this life, then you've come into this world with it. And what we found was really very fascinating. We found that in a past life, she was the daughter of a Jewish family who had gone to the Holocaust. And she was torn away from her mother, and in front of her very eyes, the mom was transported to, you know, taken to another camp and taken to gas chambers. And she basically took in that entire experience as a 5-year-old child in a past life. And she came back to this world, you know, after that past life regression, and was completely confused because she's Catholic and, you know, German, but Catholic, and never has anybody in her entire lineage, including her grandparents, ever spoken about anything of that nature. So she decided that she was going to take this very seriously and start doing some investigative work, and went back to her family and started digging. And after a couple of weeks of denial, she broke their, you know, sort of the surface of what's happening, found out that she did have a grandparent who was Jewish, who had been taken to the Holocaust. None of this has ever been revealed for generations upon generations upon generations. And no one told her, and no one ever wanted to know, but they all became Catholic. They all moved away from Judaism, married outside the religion. And here is this person suffering from unresolved trauma from, you know, a past life that she would never have made the connection or known about had she not gone and pressed and done the serious investigative work. Of course, that then positioned the entire family to have to face this past that they tried to bury and leave behind. But it's such a profound example of intergenerational wounding, where she was not even being exposed to this person who had moved on. And yet something was launched in her soul that came into this life that was calling out for resolution, and it's not something that she could have done on her own. So that's an example, a pretty powerful example of the answer to that question as well.